Thank you, Barbara. Okay, so welcome to our webinar, Managing Your Course in myCourses. My name is Teddy Quintoro, and I'm here with my colleague, Barbara Stechison. We are both learning technology consultants at Teaching and Learning Services. So one of the items that I already talked about is we're going to record this session. The recordings that we have here is going to just actually be us, but if you prefer to have your video off anyways, you're welcome to do that as well. We also appreciate seeing you too, so that's nice. The slides of this webinar and the recording are going to be posted on the Teaching and Learning Services knowledge base, and the links are also actually going to appear in the chat. And then, yes, so if you can remain muted, at least during the portion where we're giving the presentation, that would be appreciated. But definitely, if you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to use a chat. And so we can address questions there during the session, or if you prefer to wait till after, we can also either take the questions via audio or chat as well. And actually, lastly, we're proud to announce that our event has been awarded a virtual sustainable event certification by McGill's Sustainable Events. That's run by the McGill Offices of Sustainability. There it is. So that's the logo there that we have on the bottom right. Even meeting in a virtual environment, we would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all lands and that we may be separately on today. We do this to reaffirm our commitment to and responsibly for improving relationships among nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples, the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe and the cultures. So the session outcomes that we have for you today is that we're going to actually look at designing the homepage with purpose to enhance the course experience. We're going to identify strategies and procedures for managing student grades using the gradebook, or also called grades. We're going to look at tracking student activities using the class progress and also a tool called Intelligent Agents. And finally, we're going to look at how you can promote non-graded activities if you have sessions or activities in myCourses that aren't graded using the awards tool. So on this part, I'll pass it over to Barbara.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. So we're going to begin with what your students first see when they enter your course, and this is referred to as your course homepage. So in the slides that follow, we're going to take a look at some strategies and some recommendations to help you design a homepage that is meaningful for both you and your students. So when you first click on a course from the main landing page in myCourses, you'll see something similar to what you see here on the screen, and this is referred to as your course homepage. And each course homepage has a couple default aspects, such as a navigation bar, a banner, and widgets. However, the default is not your only option. It is fully customizable depending on your preferences, and you actually have quite a bit of control over what your students see here. So when thinking about your homepage, it's important to design it with purpose and really think through what's most important within the context of what your students need to know or what they need to do. So you're going to want to consider limiting what you place on your homepage so that it only includes useful information, and also organize your page to help students find the resources they need them when they need them, because the key here is to enhance the learning experience for your students. And some of the ways that you can do this is by customizing your homepage. So let's start by taking a look at your banner. So a default banner image is applied to each course. And the purpose of the banner is to add visual styling as well as context to your course. However, the default may not always be appropriate. For instance, in the example you see here, we have an anatomy course with a roller coaster for an image, so maybe not the best option to represent the course. So the good thing to know is that your default banner can be changed, and you can choose a new image from one of the hundreds of images that are available to you in the myCourses banner image bank. So as you can see now, we have something a little bit more appropriate. We replaced our roller coaster with something that represents our anatomy course. And also note, you can also upload a custom banner. So if you have an image that you really like, that you've used previously, or maybe a departmental image that's commonly used, that can also be applied here. Next, let's take a look at how you can customize your navigation bar. So what you see here is the default navigation bar that is applied to all courses. It contains the most commonly used tools. So you have the content, link to content, Zoom, lecture recordings, discussions, assignments, and grades. And note that the last two items, so your class list and course admin, are only visible to you, and your students do not see these two options. So you can change your nav bar to reflect which tools you'll be using in your course. So you'll likely want to keep such things as content and grades, as well as any engagement and assessment tools that you're using. And if you wish to customize a nav bar, it's very simple. You would simply click on the three little dots that you see here, highlighted in blue, which would bring you to a page where you can easily delete and add tools. So for instance, if you're using the quizzes tool in your course, you would need to add this to your nav bar since it doesn't appear there by default. And this is important to do because your students won't be able to access the quizzes tool if it isn't in your nav bar. So it's important to be selective about the links that you have in your nav bar. So not only adding links to tools that may be missing, but also removing tools that you aren't using. And also, you may want to consider the order that they appear in. So we normally recommend that you place the most frequently accessed tools from left to right, because again, we're thinking about visual organization and helping our students find what they need quickly and easily. So before we move on to talking about widgets, we're curious to know about the type of information you like sharing with your students on the homepage, or if you're new to myCourses, maybe some of the types of information you like to share with them, but maybe aren't totally sure about the best way to go about it. So if you can just take a minute and jot down some ideas of the types of information you usually like to share or that you would like to share with your students, that would be great. So I'm just going to read out what everyone's posting. So we have announcements, readings, links, and events, attendance, the syllabus, a welcome announcement. Yeah, definitely. Reminders, very important. An overview of the course, important dates, announcements again. Information about upcoming assignments, I guess links to articles. Content, yes. This is great. And because your homepage is what students first see when they enter your course, you want to use this as a way to capture their attention, communicate with them, and help them manage their work. So all of these examples that you've put in the chat are all really important items that you would want to place on your homepage. And ways that you can do this is by using widgets, which is the next portion of the webinar that we're going to cover. So we can talk about how we can do some of these things that you've posted in the chat. I'm just going to move things around on my screen. Okay. So as I said, another way you can customize your homepage is by changing some of the widgets. Each of the boxes that you see here on the screen is referred to as a widget. And there's a couple of default widgets that are available to you when you go to your course for the first time. And so these default widgets are the announcement widget and the calendar widget. And so of course you can customize your homepage by changing these widgets and adding others. The widgets that you choose to include on your homepage should do two things. So you want them to help ease navigation and help with communication. So again, it's all about helping your students find information easily and quickly by providing them with methods to access frequently used course resources, and also to use your widgets to help you share up-to-date information about your course. So in the slides that follow, we're going to review some of the widgets that we particularly like and highly recommend in helping you to help manage your course. So the first widget we're going to take a look at is the announcement widget. And so this is one of your default widgets. It's a place to add messages that you would like students to see when they log into your course. So you can use this widget to communicate important information to students, such as a welcome message at the start of the semester, information about, maybe an extension to an assignment due date, a follow-up from an in-class discussion, links to articles or resources, reminders, and so on. And the nice thing about the announcement widget is that you're not limited to only using text in your announcements. You could add different media, such as images. You can put in links, you can embed a YouTube video, and you can even record a video message using either uploading the video or using your computer's webcam. This is a really nice way to create a more personal touch or to improve engagement with your students. And you can also take it a step further and personalize your messages by incorporating your student's name. So as you can see on the screen, it says, "Welcome, Barbara." And this can be done by using a simple variable called a replace string when editing your announcement. And I think Teddy just put a link in the chat to how you can go about doing this. All right, so the next widget we're going to take a look at is the other default widget, which is the calendar widget. So this is a great way to help students stay on top of due dates and other important course information. So you can create your own custom events, such, if you have a guest speaker or a special presentation, or perhaps you want to signal an upcoming holiday. And you can also schedule recurring events too using this tool. Also, deadline dates that are set up in other myCourses tools. So if you're using the assignments or the quizzes tool, for instance, any deadlines associated with these are automatically displayed here. Students will normally see up to 14 upcoming events in this widget. And if they click on it, they'll be brought to the calendar tool, which will give them access to the full calendar. And another nice thing is that students can subscribe to it with their preferred calendar software. So that's a really nice feature. Furthermore, you can see all events from all courses you're enrolled in via the calendar widget that appears on the main myCourses homepage. So this calendar basically acts like a personal timetable where you can see at a glance any event coming up in any course that you're enrolled in. So next we have a widget that is not one of your default ones. This is the teacher profile widget. It's a custom widget that you can add to your homepage. And we really like this widget because it gives you a space to introduce yourself, where you can share your photo, a short bio, and any of your social media details if you like. It's a nice widget to add to make your course feel more personable to your students and give you more of a presence. We find that when students feel like the instructor is more present in an online environment, they're likely to be more engaged in the course. Next, we have my personal favorite, which is the visual table of contents. So again, this is another custom widget. I really like this widget because it allows for quick and easy access to your course content through these visual and interactive tiles. So each of these tiles that you see here on the screen represents a content module for your course. And by clicking on one of these tiles, you are brought directly to a specific module. So each course's module's title is displayed within the tile. And then there's a little information button that can be selected to flip the tile to reveal the module's description. Also, students can track their progress, which is great. So they can look at each module and they can see a progress bar, which shows them the number of topics that they've completed. Next, we have the updates widget. So again, this is not a default widget. This is a handy little widget. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space, but it provides a really nice at-a-glance view of recent course activity. It's one that benefits both the instructor and students because it provides this snapshot of all the work that requires attention. So it can notify you and your students of any unattempted quizzes, unread discussion posts, new content, etc. And then the last widget that we wanted to bring to your attention is the course overview widget. So again, this is not a default widget. And this one allows you to easily access analytics about students and your course. And this widget is strictly for instructors. Students would not see this widget. This widget, it displays high-level aggregate information about the course, and it also provides links to course-specific reports. So for example, as you can see here on the screen, there's a visualization of weekly course access and how many students submitted quizzes on a given day. In addition, you have links to different reports like the class engagement tool, the course access report, and the tool access report. So before we move on to the next section, which is talking about how to manage student grades, I'm just going to do a little check-in to see if anything's come up in the chat that maybe I need to address. I think Teddy covered it. Oh, what does the class engagement refer to? So that's how students are interacting with the different tools in the course. So it'd have to do with access to different tools, if they've been participating in the discussion forum, for instance, and so on. All right. So let's move on then to managing. Oh, sorry, I'm seeing more, more questions coming in. Can you repeat how to access the widget? I'm wondering if it'd probably be easier to send a link to the instructions. Just give me one sec. I'm just going to repaste.
I think I found it. The overview of the widgets there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
And
Teddy.
if that's not clear, we can talk about it as well afterwards, or we can cover it.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
And yes, we can change the visibility of the widgets. There's ways of actually doing it by role. So if you only wanted to be shown for other instructors or TAs, you can do that. I'm not sure if like you can technically also give the ability for students to minimize the widgets if you want them to not see it all the time. But that depends. In general, we kind of prefer it to be visible. Sure, I think we could do that, except that we would have to get out of PowerPoint to do that. So
I think how about we do it at the end?
Yeah, let's do that.
So that's all right.
Yep.
Because it may take a little bit of time, so we can cover that at the end. Or if we run out of time, always happy to set up a consultation with you and review it one-on-one too.
And then there was another question I think that came up.
Oh, sorry. What is a widget? A widget is, so it's the portion that we just looked at. So the different examples that I gave, each of those is a widget. And so when you go to your course homepage, you'll see they basically look like little boxes on your homepage, and you'll normally see two. which is one for announcements and one for your calendar. So basically that's the name of them, is widget. All right. So let's move along then to managing student grades. So what we're going to look at now is a tool to help you manage your student grades, and it's called the Grades tool. However, we normally refer to it as the Gradebook. So just to give you an idea of what the Gradebook is exactly, it represents all the work that you want to evaluate your students on in a course. It's where you can evaluate specific tasks such as assignments, quizzes, participation, presentations, etc. And so, for example, on the screen here, you can see that I have a gradebook, a very simple gradebook with 4 different items in it. So I have an assignment, I have a midterm, a participation grade, and a final exam. And one of the things about the gradebook is that you can manually enter grades here for individual items, or if you have your gradebook linked to other tools in myCourses. So if you're using, for instance, an assessment tool like the quizzes tool or the assignments tool or the discussion tools, then your grading from these items can automatically flow to the gradebook. Also, we've noticed that students really appreciate when instructors use the gradebook because it allows them to see their progress in a course. And so there we go. So here's an example of a student's view of the gradebook. So here they can verify their grades on a specific assignment, and they can also see any additional feedback that the instructor may have included, and they can also view their final grade from here, but only once it has been released by the instructor. Final grades do not appear automatically. They have to be manually released by the instructor. So why use the gradebook? Well, a lot of great reasons to use the gradebook. Number one, it does the math for you. Grades are automatically calculated. Also, multiple users can enter grades at the same time. So this is especially handy if you have TAs in your course and they're helping you grade assignments. It's great for record keeping. You don't need to deal with Excel spreadsheets, emails, Post-it notes, however, multiple ways of managing grading. You can do it all from one place. So you can enter your grade, you can include feedback to accompany your grades, all within the gradebook. And you can also manage exactly what students see. So you can decide what grade items you want students to see and when they see them by either hiding or making visible specific grade items. You can also decide whether they see their grades as a points value, as a percentage, as a letter grade, whether they can see the calculation method or the logic behind their final grade. And again, final grades are not released to students automatically. They have to be explicitly published by the instructor. Another really nice feature is that you can sort, filter, and view statistics. So you can view details about the entire class, about a specific group, or if you have multiple sections, the specific sections' overall grades within your course. You can also see such things like the minimum grade, the maximum grade. There's even a graph that'll show you the distribution of grades. And also, myCourses makes it really easy to transfer your students' final grades directly to Minerva. There is an export to Minerva wizard that is available in the gradebook tool. So that's a really nice way to get your grades from myCourses directly into Minerva. So basically the key takeaway is that it's a really nice time saver and a great way to help you manage all your student grades in one place. I see a lot going on in the chat, Teddy. So if there's anything you want me to address, just let me know, okay?
I think we're good. I'll continue answering as I can, and yeah, no worries.
Thanks. All right, so as the instructor, you determine how to set up your gradebook to best reflect your approach to evaluation in your course. And before you actually start setting up your gradebook in myCourses, we really recommend that you take some time to think through some key questions. And we've listed them here, these 5 key questions that we recommend that you think about before you actually go into myCourses and start creating your gradebook. So we're going to go through them now. So the first question is, what will you evaluate? So which course activities do you plan to evaluate? So in the example that we have here on the screen, you can see that I have 3 quizzes. I have a group project, a written report, a participation grade, and a final exam. Next question is, which grading system is most appropriate for your course? So you want to determine how the items that you are evaluating your students on contribute to their final grade. So for instance, will your gradebook be weighted or will it be points-based? And then how will points or weights be allocated? So for example, my gradebook is a weighted gradebook. My 3 quizzes are each scored out of 25 points and are each worth 10% of the final grade. I have a group project that is going to be out of 100 points and worth 20% of my final grade, a written report that is also scored out of 100 points and worth 20% of my final grade, a participation grade, which is out of 5 points and worth 5% of my final grade, and a final exam that is out of 100 points worth 25% of my final grade. So what you can see is that all of my weights for each individual item, when we add them up, if I did the math right, it should add up to 100%. Next question is, how will you handle ungraded items? So you can choose to drop ungraded items. So in this case, if a student did not, for instance, complete one of the 3 quizzes, it will be assumed that the grade for this one quiz is excluded from the student's final grade calculation. So basically the final grade will be inflated. Or you can choose to treat ungraded items as a 0. And so this option will simply issue a 0 for anything that is not graded. So if a student doesn't complete a quiz, they receive a 0. And then finally, how will final grades be calculated? So again, there are 2 options here. You can use the final calculated grade. And what this means is that the final grade is calculated by the gradebook. So you can't adjust the final grade without adjusting individual grade item scores. Or you can use the final adjusted grade, which is normally what we recommend instructors use. This allows you to manually change the final grade calculation without affecting grade item scores. And note that if you do plan to export to Minerva, you will have to use the final adjusted grade as your final grade, simply because Minerva does not allow for decimal places. So therefore, you need to round your grades accordingly before you can export. So once you've thought through these questions, then you can begin setting up your gradebook in myCourses. And once you go to the gradebook for the first time, you'll see the grades setup wizard. So basically what the grade setup wizard is, it's a guide, and that guides you through a series of 7 steps, including some of the questions that we just looked over. So it'll help you think through your calculation options, display options for you and your students, whether the grade students see will be in the form of a letter, a percentage, a number of points, and so on. And as a best practice, we recommend that you use the grade setup wizard before creating grade items in your gradebook, simply because making changes to a gradebook settings and any calculation options after you begin tracking student grades can significantly affect existing data. So once you've completed your setup, you can begin creating your grade items, entering and managing your grades, and sharing this data with your students as you see fit. And again, just want to emphasize that the gradebook is really a great way to help you manage your student grades and to help you keep an eye on your students' progress. And I'm going to pass it over to Teddy, but also maybe take a little pause to see if anything needs to be addressed that may have come up in the chat.
I think there's a few things that we have to just note to go back to when we're going to do the showing afterwards. Like the how to release the final adjusted grade, for example. So and then maybe we could do a quick creating the item in the gradebook item. So we'll go back to that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so this way we'll cover the next part, which is how do you track the student data. So yeah, definitely, if you have any other questions, feel free to keep on adding it in chat, but there's parts of me that wants to, I guess, finish off the presentation so we can cover all the show and tell once we're done that part. Okay, so once you've set up your course in myCourses, you've curated or actually developed some material, you added some synchronous and asynchronous activities, but how do you know if students are accessing the material and engaging in myCourses? How do you keep students on track? And what if you have a large class? So in an online environment, we don't have as many cues to rely on as we do in a physical environment, like students showing up to class or their facial expressions. So let's take a look at how myCourses can do some of that, those analytics for you. Getting my cursor. Okay, there you go. Nope, they're just going too fast there. All right, so just before we dive in, I'd be curious to know what kind of activities or myCourses activities are you interested in knowing about your students? So for those that have been using myCourses in the past, is there anything you want to know about your students' activity, like that you may want to know that and take a look at? But for those of you that are new to myCourses, are there any activities that you would like to keep an eye on over the next semester? So what are the things that you're thinking about to keep an eye on? And I'm taking a look at your question, Mona. Yeah. Yes. That's definitely in the wizard. So we'll take a look at that. So whether they are completing readings and looking at the time, yeah, how long they're spending at the documents, looking at the content that they're presented with. Yes, absolutely. Are they looking at the readings? Absolutely. Submission completion and assignments yeah, definitely. There's some things that keep an eye on. Absolutely. Yeah, looking at Brunes, you're saying the progress over the semester, like yeah, to see like are they maybe going in a lot at the beginning, but maybe less so later on. Yeah, and what time when they're going, absolutely, and when are they looking at their content? Those are great things to absolutely things you can learn from your students, and then you're able to present content when they're in. So those are great responses. Thank you. So I'm going to show you actually where are the places that you can go and do these things. Oh, we have another one for the journal assignment. Okay, and you want to see how regular they are doing their posting, I guess. Yeah, that's a good. Depending on which tool you're going to use, there's different ways of going about it, but that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, doing a grade analysis. Wow, this is getting complex and very interesting. I'm not sure we're going to be able to go through this, but very cool. Let's see if we can cover some of these items. All right, so I'm gonna get started. So the first tool that I'll mention that's a part of myCourses, so that does the analytics for you, is called the class progress tool, and it's available for all instructors from the default navigation bar and also you can go to course admin and take a look at that. And depending on what items you have made available in your course, I think that's the first thing that I'd suggest you to do is you can actually modify these what you see here. So what we have presented now is we have content visited. I think some of you mentioned that, to see like what's the percentage of what they've looked at in content, if they're participating in discussions, if they're logging into the system, and as well as the grades. So this is maybe part of the grade analysis that could be mentioned, where are they completing some of the evaluations or summative evaluations there. What I actually find pretty interesting as well is that you can actually see this under the discussions whether or not they've been reading. So it's not just the posting, but also the number of clicks or what they've read. So for example, if you're planning weekly discussion threads, and I was mentioning maybe on the comment before about if you're posting, a personal journal, there's also a way of doing a discussion topic that's private to the student, and then you can actually keep an eye on what they're posting there, and then if they're posting regularly, and you can actually go into detail to see their postings when you're there, when you're in that view. So I'll show you that afterwards. Something to keep in mind about data before I go too much into it is we obviously have to interpret it with a grain of salt. Not all students are the same. Some may spend more time interacting with the material in my courses. Others prefer reading the textbook if there's a textbook there, and others love to hang out in the discussion board, but others prefer to avoid it unless there's something, a grade attached to it. And actually, some students may even click more if they know that you're paying attention. So lots of activity in my courses may not necessarily mean that a successful student. With this being said, if you look at the overall data and pattern, for example, a student, let's say here, that does not access much material, has not read any postings, and is logging in frequently within the last 2 weeks of the course, well, that could raise a flag. And if you have a large class, you can actually end up with quite a few pages in the class progress tool. So what you could do to facilitate your viewing in class progress is you can actually filter it by, right now it's filtered by all users, but you can also create groups. And so that either yourself or maybe a TA that's overviewing the group can keep an eye on their own students. But it can be also classified by different kinds of groups that you think you want to divide it by. And so you would create those groups within my courses. Thank you for posting that. That's I just reading the question that's coming in about if the login is not listed. I'm not sure. I haven't heard about that. I believe it should track the content though, because if you go to the content, it's still logging into the content site. So it depends maybe on which parts. And then I will talk about a tool that's being used called Pulse, and maybe through there we can go through that. But I think maybe if you have a specific scenario later on, Gregory, we can take a look at that. That would I'd be interested in knowing where that wasn't true. All right. So the other thing that we can do with the class progress is we can actually drill down. So this is what I was talking about with the discussions, and you can have take a look at what the students is asking when they are asking a particular question. For example, on your course outline, you can actually take a look to see. So this is not a discussion, but you can actually see in the content if they viewed the content and when they viewed it. So let's say you've updated the course outline, you can take a look at, oh, they looked at it, June 5th. So you can see whether or not they've looked at the updated version. So that's one way of actually going by. You can also take a look at when they've actually accessed the course. So earlier we talked about login to the system. There's actually drilling down to logging into or accessing the course. So that these are, and how many days between the courses they've actually logged into. And the one that I do enjoy is what I was talking about, the discussions, where you can actually open each thread and read each post that the student has posted in. So you of course you can go into the discussion topic, but if you're drilling down to a student, this is a good way of seeing the holistic view when they're engaging in discussions in my courses. Okay. Yes. How can you change it? I'm just going to go address that really quickly. It's because I know it's in the previous slide. It's right here on the top right. There's a settings button, and then here you can choose what's visible. You can remove the columns and add columns that you want to change it to instead. Okay. So how can some of you have asked, how can you actually track access in content? So within content, you can actually look at those details too. And so depending on your view that you are using, if you're using the new learner experience, it's under view reports there. Or if you're using the older content experience, you would have to click on related tools and then view reports. And so this is what it would look like. So you can actually see like per module and per file, how many people have viewed them in total, and actually the amount of time on average students have spent there. So this is the number visited and the time that they spent. The other thing that you can actually go and take a look at is you can actually also view it by students. So you can view students and then the name of the student here that's blacked out, and then in total how much content have they seen there. The other part that you can actually go and view content is directly with underneath the content. You'll have a table, I guess, at the bottom that lists the activity details, the learning objectives, and the completion summary. And then under completion summary, for example, you can see here, you can actually end up, like if you want to search for example, Laura, whether or not, again, she's looked at the course outline, you can actually type the name of the student, and then you can see there's 2 Lauras here, and then you can then see, oh, when did they actually view that piece of content. So this is where we type the name and check out where they've seen it. Okay, so this could, like, if you have a large class, it could be pretty challenging to track each individual student that we talked about in the way that we do in class progress. So if you have maybe 50 students or above, there's another tool that you can use that are called intelligent agents. And they can, that tool can send an email based on a certain criteria that you set. So it is automated, but you can also personalize the email by adding variables, the same variables that Barbara had used for the announcements that said, welcome, Barbara. So including the student's first name and the course title. So for example, here are some of the ways that you could use the intelligent agents. So for example, you can flag yourself or your teaching assistants. Let's say if a student is falling behind. So for example, the criteria in this case is that you haven't submitted the assignment by the due date. And then the email gets sent to you, not necessarily to the students. You can also set reminders to students. So the criteria in this case could be they haven't accessed the assignment or the quizzes X number of days before the deadline, or they haven't logged in for the past 7 days. Then the system will trigger that automation and will send that email reminder. There's also, you can send a welcome email. So for example, if you have a course where that maybe if you're opening up a little bit ahead of time, or if you have an ongoing course and you don't know when the students are actually joining first in the course, that can be sent when they first logged in. And you can ask them questions, or if you do a survey before the beginning of the class, that's one way of linking to it. And finally, you can also send encouraging messages based on, let's say, they've completed certain activities that you wanted them to do. For example, if they posted on a welcome discussion thread, or if they've completed a portion of the classwork, that can be automated as well. All right, so that's pretty much about the analytics end of portion. So you can do it either through class progress visually, or you can also automate it based on criteria using intelligent agents. So the next part that we're going to cover is we're going to see how we can recognize student milestones, not necessarily through the grade book, but without a grade item, but actually maybe giving something else instead. So the tool that we use there is the awards tool in myCourses. And the awards tool has 2 components. It has the badges, and it also has certificates. It may not be as applicable for some courses, but maybe badges is something that could be of interest. So this is what students would see when they get awarded a badge. I'm gonna just click on that here, and then this is here. This is what the message that they would get if they pop into the course and they're awarded the badge. And then you can see the collection of badges. And you can also have, if you want, if you're interested in that maybe friendly competition in the course, is you can actually display a widget on your homepage that displays the awards leaderboard. So the ones that have the most at the top. So if you have a lot of badges, that could be an interesting, fun competition to have there. And the way they are awarded badges is you can do it either automatically using the criteria or manually as well. So I'm gonna show you how you can set this up as well. So how does it work? It's first you create that badge. There's a pre-selected icons that you can use there. And you can also, if you're interested, you can create your own badge by uploading your own photo. And then you can also decide whether you want to display or hide the badge, because maybe you want students to know how they can earn these badges, so they can show up beforehand, or you just have them hidden and only when they've earned it that they get displayed. And finally, that's it. Do you want it awarded automatically or manually awarding it? So for example, if it's something you observe, then it's something that's more manually awarded. Like let's say they've attended or done something in person, then you can manually award that badge. Okay, so here's a couple of examples that we can use the awards tool for. So for example, if you want students to spend more time on course content, you can like such as viewing required readings or introductory videos, or if you want students to practice their skills using a self-assessment, so that it's not quite the assessments yet, but you would just want them to make sure they're doing their practice and they have unlimited attempts. They can have the award after maybe getting a threshold of a certain score. You can also recognize participation in activities. So if you're posting, for example, in the discussion thread, like an icebreaker activity, or for example, if they're attending virtual office hours or review sessions, or if maybe they're doing a practice quiz before the actual quiz is getting done. So just and then a last example is if they're providing like midterm, like course feedback, some not the end course feedback, but midway through, if they're doing that. Again, this would probably be not anonymous if they want to be awarded a badge, but it's another way of getting recognized. So at the beginning of the course, you want to probably communicate to your students how you will be using the awards tool, which areas that are awarded, whether it's tied to content or the discussion threads, and how much weight and time they might be spending overall trying to earn these awards. So the awards tool is not tied to the gradebook, but you may decide maybe to factor in some of the awards into the course grade, such as either bonus points or factoring as part of the participation grade. But that's something that you would calculate manually as well. All right, so I think we were talking about access to the system from the mobile. This is a tool that I think everybody should know, including yourselves. If you can access this as an instructor as well to keep tabs of what's the dates that are coming up. If you've put in some things in the calendar, that's viewable for students as well. If you post announcements, those appear in the app and will pop up as a notification if students are enabling that notification. So it's a great tool to use, so that whenever you use the calendar tool and things like that, you can actually go and check that, and even view it. You can also view course content. So though the app itself is a front layer, when they start clicking on things, it actually opens up the website and logs them in. So it's actually a quick way of logging into the system as well. If you're doing things very quickly or you're doing things on the go, you can do it on the web, on your phone. Okay, we've come to the end of the session and we have a few minutes. That's why I was kind of like going through a little bit more quickly near the end. But before we take in some questions, I would like to know what are your most important takeaways from today's session? And definitely, if you have any additional questions, and we're going to come back to the ones that we're going to go and show on the browser. And actually, there's one more question here that I can address. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, I was slow to type.
No worries.
You can add to it if you like.
So I'm gonna leave this. You know what? Is there a way? You know what? I'm gonna type in the question so that I can stop sharing my screen, and then we can go into the browser and start doing the showing how things get done. There we go. Okay, so those are there. I'm gonna stop sharing my PowerPoint, and then actually maybe there's a few things that we can cover, which is the resources. So there are a few other events that we have, like webinars over the next few days. So you can register to that at on the TLS website /events, and we have the teaching KB, which we refer to, including the webinars and links, and TLS website, the teaching blog. Thanks for pasting it, Barbara. And we can also, if we don't have time to cover all the questions that you may have today, definitely book a consultation with us, and then we can address some of these questions more individually. All right.
Yeah, I'm also adding 2 links to the chat, which I think will be really helpful for the question about how to add widgets to your homepage. It's pretty step-by-step on how you would go about doing it. And also for releasing the final grade. There are also step-by-step instructions on that. So I'm just going to post those here as well.
So I think that's it. So I'm gonna stop the share of the PowerPoint, and I'm gonna share a browser so that we can open these. Actually, yeah, I'm sharing the desktop, and I'll log in. I think as my okay. So actually, Barbara, if you don't mind going and checking, just I know we had a few things to go over. The first one was it creating the gradebook items? There was one before, or overall the widgets.
Just the widgets, how to add the widgets.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a lot of things happening in my course, including a lot of widgets. So this is a perfectly bad example of how to use the homepage, but it's a place where I do a bit of my testing ground. So if you want to change the widgets, it's at the bottom right. There's the 3 dots here, and you can go and say edit this homepage, and it'll show you like which widgets you want to add and the layout that you want. So these are the layouts. This is the layout of my homepage. So it's like I have 2 columns here, and where I can put my widgets. So Barbara had mentioned the visual table of contents is here, and then there's a teacher profile widget. And so to add them, you would just click on the quadrant or the area that you want to add the widget in, and you would click add widgets, and you can. So for example, the announcements tool, you can have that there. Actually, it's already there, so I'm not going to add it. Or you can remove them. So you can add and remove them this way. That's pretty much it in a quick fashion way. It's just scroll down to the bottom, the 3 dots, and then you can start editing the homepage and adding the widgets. Actually, I won't save it because I want to make sure I want to keep the announcements. All right, so the next question I think was the gradebook. So just a quick way. I think we talked about actually let's go to the wizard, because under the settings here, actually it's here, the setup wizard that Barbara was talking about was here. And so this is a good place to start when you're first creating your gradebook, is to take a look at that. What kind of grading system you want it to be. Right now I have it to formula, but by default it's more it's weighted, that the way we displayed. And I think what the other item that's good to note is if you have ungraded items, is you would want to change it to say that it's 0, because otherwise it just removes the grade out of the calculation. So a student could feel like they're getting 100 without even completing the rest of the course. So treat ungraded items as 0 is a good way to go. So you would just go through the wizard, and you can, so this is the weighted example that we had, and then you can continue doing that. So and you can choose which grade you're going to be released, right? So you can, I think we originally had the adjusted final grade, because again, this allows you to modify it. If you just do the final calculated grade, that's very much based on the calculation that's set either on the weighted part. So you can't edit it. But what you could do is, what's done is you have the final grade, and then you transfer it to the final adjusted grade, and then you release it there. I'm going to show that afterwards. So let's just let's leave it to final adjusted grade here. And then this is the option that I was mentioning, to treat ungraded items as 0. So I think that's that. And then there's different schemas that you can have. I mean, if you want to use display letter grades, you can choose that schema as well. Or if you want it to be no decimals, these are the options you can choose. And or do that. Actually, there's quite a few more steps, but these ones are not that important. I think everything is pretty much it. So I think that's the defaults. Let me see. It is 1 o'clock, but I'm open to continuing to show for those that are interested. So let's go to creating a grade item. Really basic one. Actually, would be under. Some people were asking about importing and exporting into a spreadsheet. These are the ones. So exporting first is a good idea, because it will give you the format that myCourses likes to have the import back. So this would be for Excel. And then if you want to create a column, it's under manage grades, and you just do new, and then new item, new column item. And so each of these will be a new item here. I'm not going to actually go to creating each column, but that's the first place you want to go, to manage grades. And there, I think the other question we had was releasing of the final grades, right? And so if I go back to the grade, actually under enter grades, this is where it'll be. And so this is a part where you come at the end of the semester when you have everything calculated. Again, I have a lot of columns. This wouldn't be normally the case, but let me see if I can go there. So if I have it at the end, there's the final grades. And if I want to, so for example, if I want to release it, I will do enter grades here, and then from here you'll see everything is of the final grades happens here. And there's actually a few options that are listed under the this arrow here. So for example, transferring all the grades from the final calculated grade happens over here. When you transfer it all, it'll bring the grade from here to here. So that's the first thing you would do under final grades. And then afterwards, you can edit if you need to adjust any of the grades before they get submitted. So you adjust it there. And then when you're done with that, you would release them. So you could either release them all like this by saying release all, or you could individually release by selecting either like this or the students and then setting it to release. And the way you know that it's released is that you can later see that there's a check mark on the right hand side to show whether or not students can see that that final adjusted grade. And so that's pretty much it at the end. But the key part, I think the one that's a little bit hidden is this little downward arrow has a lot of the options that you want in the final grade. All right, so I think with that, let me know, Barbara, if there's anything else that that we can cover showing it. Those are the ones I remember while we were doing the grade book.
I think that was everything. The only thing is there's a question from Bruna that came in about not having the option of editing the home page.
That probably would be the role. So depending on the
Yeah.
role that you have in the course, generally if you're the instructor, or if you're a TA, there's different roles of TAs that maybe could be it. But if you're an instructor, course designer, or if you're working on a course that's not a banner course, maybe you're a facilitator, you should have access to that. But again, maybe this is something you can either probably talk to the person that enrolled you in the course. First, let me just see if there's a chat there. Okay, you're the instructor. Oh.
And Bruna, if you go to course admin, do you see homepage as an option?
Okay, so maybe it's the 3 dots.
Yeah, I do. So sorry. I do see if like, I mean, I don't mind sharing my screen with you.
I can, yeah.
I don't think I can though, because I'm not course organizer, but what I see the banner, I see my announcements, I can edit the whole content of the course.
I'll give you access, just give me a second.
But I can't really, like, I cannot add widgets. I can change the banner, I can do everything that you mentioned, except that.
I mean, I think you're correct, Barbara. It's possible that that it's also in the. I mean, you could go into course admin. It's the 3 dots at the bottom, right? That you're saying that you don't have access to. I just gave you. I think I gave you access to share your screen. And you can, if you can go there, I will be able to. You're right. The other way of going about it is under course administration, and then going to home pages. But if you share your screen, we can take a look at that. And I'll take a look at the chat. Anything else?
I think that was it in the chat. But coordinator.
Yeah, coordinator should have access.
Yeah.
Course coordinator, yeah.
This might be it.
I think what we're gonna do is, if you don't mind, Barbara, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Yeah.